state, for example, the deep state, which is also called shadow government. But there are many who don't understand what that is. They say, what do you mean by deep state? You know? The trouble is, there's a reason it's called shadow government. There's a reason it's called deep state. Because it's a force behind the scene. That means that there are people, there are those who run the system from behind. Some assume that there are government functionaries, okay, in the civil service and so on. No, 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 no. Those are tools and agents. Many of them are tools and agents of the deep state. Every society could have a deep state. They're usually non-state actors. You have to understand, they're usually non-state actors who behind the scene decide who should be their state actors for their benefit. And is something wrong with that? No, there's nothing wrong with that. If you had the opportunity, you'd do the same. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with sponsoring political candidates and who should ensure that your agenda is protected or executed. There's nothing wrong with that. That has always been part of our world. Even our God does the same from behind. Right? Yeah. He likes to run things through us. So the problem is not it's not whether there's a deep state. It's not whether there's a shadow government. That's not the problem. The problem is, who are they and what is the agenda? Every society somehow has got it. But who are they? What's the agenda? What's the plan? That's what matters. As long as they're working against the people, something's wrong. Something's wrong. Hey, come on. You all know, a lot of times, the political candidates don't have the funds required to run for the office. So there are those who will help them. And they have interests that must be protected. There's nothing wrong with that. Question is, who is behind it? Who is behind it? So now we're talking about the weaponization of medicine. Not because medicine itself is bad, but who's behind it? Who's behind it? So here's where the problem is. So when we say that there's a war, it's not about the system. It's who's behind what. So when you're thinking about politics, you have to think like that as well. Who's behind this candidate or that candidate? Who's behind? Who's inspiring this? What's the agenda? What's the plan? When we talk about the globalist agenda, we are reading them from the Bible. We are reading them from God's book. in God's book between the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ and when he comes back, because the Bible shows us different ages, different world empires, and shows us what they were each supposed to do and what they did. And then tells us about the future. The interesting thing about the period between the death, burial, and resurrection, and of course ascension of Jesus Christ, between that time and when the Bible says he'll come back, the only world power that's to come, the Bible says, will be inspired by Satan and will be headed by the Antichrist, and describes what life will be like in this world by that government. The only world government that will take place. And since that time, there's been no world government. It was the Roman government that was in place at the time of the crucifixion of Jesus. And the scriptures also told us about the collapse of that government. And shortly after 3 centuries, it was gone. It was gone. It was after Jesus Christ. So, the point here is, you can't just sit by and say, okay, we're going to have a one world government. Oh, you're going to have a one world government? All right. So what's it going to be like? And then they tell you X, Y, Z. You have to be wise enough to go to the Bible. Does the Bible say anything about it? Yes. Okay. So when is it going to come? And what is it supposed to be like? And then you look and you have the understanding. The book tells us there will be such a government at such a time. It'll be inspired by the devil. There'll be lots and lots and lots of deaths. It gives us on several occasions the percentage of human toll that will take place during the period. The deaths. Lots of deaths and dying. Because Satan is a murderer. And so what we've seen is a preparation, because God said in the scriptures that the timing had to be shortened. He says, otherwise, no flesh will be saved. The desperation of Satan. He had to cut the time short. Otherwise, he says, no flesh will be saved. So he got limited to 3.5 years. So, if he is as smart as the Bible tells us he is, what do you think he would do? Since he knows that there's a predetermination as to how it ends. The only other way, because he can't move it forward, so the only other way is start earlier. And that's what he's trying to do. And that's what he has tried to do, to start earlier. The problem he's got is that to try to start earlier, God already put things in place and gave authority to his church to checkmate the devil. And we cannot allow what happened with the first Adam happen. He was told to be in charge of the garden. God put him in charge. And he let the devil in. Not only did he let the devil in, he did what the devil wanted him to do. And the Bible says he was not deceived. In other words, he knew the truth. He could have acted. And he let Eve guide him into his fall.